Good morning and welcome to a brand new edition of the Dumoy Factor. This morning, we turn our attention to one of the greatest speeches in Liberian politics. Alexander Benedict Cummings addressed the nation yesterday, taking on all of the issues in turn. I want to do justice um, by playing that speech, playing parts of it, especially where he made very strong arguments, laying out the government's motivation for prosecuting him. I will share that and then we'll get into analysis.
We have been ridiculously charged with forgery and criminal conspiracy. The accusations underlying these charges are totally false and completely baseless. Our accusers, Mr. Benani Ure and his All Liberian Party, the ALP, and the government of Liberia, know these charges are baseless and false. We also know that Mr. Ure and the government of Liberia are not alone in this conspiracy to lie and tarnish our heart and reputation and integrity. Sadly, to break up the CPP, Mr. Ure and the government are being cheered on by other leaders of the CPP. These leaders the process we agreed to use to choose the standard bearer of the CPP. These individuals, aware that they will lose to us, now want to break their promises to the Liberian people, but are too cowardly to take responsibility for breaking up the CPP. Hence, they are joining with the government to contrive a lawsuit against the CPP after almost 2 years of its continued existence under the same set of rules and obligations which applies to all parties, including the ANC. Feeling betrayed? Of course we are disappointed. But we are not afraid of these accusations, nor are we worried by the hypocrisy. We know the truth is on our side. We have assembled a team of great lawyers through whom we are confident the truth will be revealed, the hypocrisy will be exposed, and we will win and be vindicated. However, I'm concerned about the misdirection of our country. The conspiracy to politically prosecute opponents, aided and abetted by some members of the opposition, is bad for our young democracy. With blood, tears, and treasure, Liberians paid too high a price for our democracy, for the right to freely and fairly choose our leaders. Too often, we have allowed ourselves to think that politics is not our collective business, that it should be left to the politicians while we go about tending our daily private lives. Well, politics also determines the conditions under which we will go about our daily private lives. In fact, it determines whether our lives will be private, safe, secure, and peaceful. Politics controls everything, including how we live.
Politics controls everything. That's Cummings there, setting out the issues at stake. And I think when Alexander Cummings points out the motivation of Joseph Newman Boakai. I think he didn't say Joseph Newman Boakai, but some in the CPP actually means Joseph Newman Boakai. Let me level with you. And he rightly stated what the motivation was. The motivation here is, how does Joseph Newman Boakai go back to the Liberian people whom he promised that we will keep the CPP together, that we will plant our feet so deep that success will be the only outcome? The political punishment for leaving the CPP is what Joseph Newman Boakai is trying to avoid. That's why he is going into bed with George Weah to prosecute Alexander Cummings. And I'll play Joe Boakai in his own voice, making promises. In his own voice, making promises about keeping the CPP going. And so obviously there are political consequences for breaking promises unless you are able to deflect. And is that deflection that Joe Boakai is looking for? Listen to Joe Boakai's promise.
At the sight of a newborn baby, so all see the positives, no matter within the CPB. We recognize these challenges, accept the responsibility bestowed upon me today by the CPB as a chairperson for the next 8 months. Fellow Liberians and partisans, the past few months have been fraught with difficulties, creating anxiety in the public and a sense of implosion within the CPB. We recognize these challenges which have occasioned internal wrangling and a distasteful impression. However, we implore you to not allow differences and internal wrangling to define the CPB. No matter how contentious they may become. This is because social, economic, and political conflicts are events that can be transformed into good. We must also see the positives in our differences, as these disagreements and healthy exchanges are the labor pains of the collaboration. Just as a mother experiences discomfort in childbirth, but finds joy at the sight of a newborn baby, so also will our differences be transformed into unity, common purpose in changing our country for the good of all. I want to assure all Liberians, wherever they are in the world, that the collaboration will be strong after the storm. We will continue to demonstrate its purpose in pursuing the path of providing alternative responsive leadership for the people of Liberia. Over the next 8 months of leadership, the CPP will be institutionalized. We will entrench our feet so deep that victory will be the only option. We will not betray our country. Our people have given us the confidence. We will not disappoint them. We come to remind you all, our partisans, that all the well-meaning Liberians.
Our people has given us their confidence. We will not betray them. And like that, Joseph Newman Boakai committed himself to lead the CPP to higher heights, promising to institutionalize. But less than 8 months on, what are we witnessing? The fracturing of the CPP collaboration between the government and Joseph Numa Boakai to take Alexander Cummings to court. What kind of a leader is this that breaks his promises? Joseph Numa Boakai is afraid of this question. And like Alexander Cummings said yesterday in that powerful message, that listen, this is bogus. This, like in that program said, shame. Shame on the part of Joseph Numa Boakai, unable to explain to the Liberian people why he is putting his personal interest above the interest of the country. He is accusing Alexander Cummings of all manner of ridiculous things. So there is a political price to pay for walking away from the CPP that Joseph Numa Boakai is trying to avoid paying. And therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem. It is because of these promises that Joe Boakai made that he is afraid to exit the CPP without noise. That he's going after Cummings and trying to create unnecessary controversy so that you, the people, forget to ask this question. What happened to the promise of institutionalizing CPP? It's a very central question because it speaks to his integrity. It speaks to the integrity of his presidential campaign. Can a candidate who starts offline, who makes promises, I ran in Bond County and I promised to advocate for the release of Taylor. Listen, I didn't even win a quarter of the votes. United Party people make it their business every morning to ask me when I'm freeing Taylor. Good. Let's also answer the question, when is Boakai institutionalizing CPP? Unlike me, Boakai became chairman. When is this wise Boakai going to come? We are tired with the Boakai we have now. The elder who gambles the future. This is the Boakai we have now. Where is that Boakai that the Unity Party propaganda machine speaks of? The wise old man, the selfless patriot. Where is that Joe Boakai? Where is that Joe Boakai who has integrity, whose word is his bond? So in October, you want to unify and consolidate the CPP. But in January, you are cooperating with government to imprison members of the CPP on frivolous charges. And in fact, now you are struggling for signatures. I understand you just got enough signatures to pull the Unity Party out of the CPP. If you got 5 minutes, I will explain to you the entire process that was laid out in the CPP. First, we try to talk to each other and see who we agree will run. If that doesn't work, we have a voter perception survey, not a radio phone-in poll. Because, I mean, again, yesterday I listened to Henry Costa, and when you listen to all of them, they say they want one radio poll on OKFM, they want another poll on Spoon, and therefore we should make Boakai the candidate. On the argument that Boakai got more votes in the last election than anybody else. But Boakai did not get more votes than George Weah. So by that reason, we should cancel the election. George Weah should be president in 2023 because he got more votes. He got 300,000 more votes than Boakai. Unless you are insane, 6 years is enough time for people to change their minds. The numbers are moved by circumstances. The numbers are affected by time. Liberians are not robots. But it's like Unity Party spiritual people told them that, listen, the 500,000 vote or 440,000 vote Boga got, and bang by. Nobody will die. Nobody will travel. Nobody will change their mind. That's not true. Human beings are not like that. Because even if we went by their reasoning, that just because you had the most votes last time, you're going to get the most vote, you are going to get the most votes again, then there's no reason to run an election. Then let George Weah stay there because he got the most votes. But we are of the view that things have changed. So what made you think that only George Weah, the people changed their mind about? Joe Boga was 6 years younger. And he's a very old man. 6 years ago, I could have put Joseph Nima Boga in the executive mansion. But now he has become unattractive. He has become unattractive, given his health, deterioration in his health, given his advanced age, given his demonstration of poor leadership. Because all along, Joseph Boga had one excuse. I was only vice president. I was not the head. But he is the head of CPP. Look what's happening in the CPP now. Under your chairmanship, you managed to get the CPP registered. Even though Ure has allowed himself to be a paid agent by the government, destroying the CPP, he and Henry Costa, sadly. But at least under his administration, the principals came together and they signed the CPP agreement, the framework agreement. Okay. Under Alexander B. Cummings' lead, you won the election. CPP was winning election every county, up and down this country. Under Joe Boakai administration, everything collapsed. How do you explain that? How do you explain that? When we started, everyone said, oh, Alexander Cummings, once he's not made stand-up bearer, he will walk away. That was the propaganda Unity Party had. Who is walking away now? Joe Boakai. Why is he walking away? Because he cannot defeat Alexander Cummings in a convention. He can only win radio poll. Maybe he should be a radio president. And so yesterday, Alexander Cummings laid out the motivation. First of all, he drove us through the entire situation with the CPP. And it's not very different from what I've been saying on here. That one, the government of the Republic of Liberia is trying to decide who they run against. There was a time when they wanted to run against Cummings. But when they started to see how Cummings' popularity was swelling and how Cummings was able to change the balance of power in the CPP and to the effect that Joseph Nima Boga is running away, they're having a rethink. Because better to run against Joe Boakai or keep him in the race as a spoiler, because you can always say to Unity Party, you had 12 years, you were also corrupt. But you can't say that to Cummings. You cannot say that to Cummings. You can always say that Unity Party is not a real change because they had 12 years. But what do you say to Cummings? CDC realized that their primary competitor in the 2023 elections is Alexander Benedict Cummings. They know this. And so they're trying to throw Cummings out. They're trying to throw Cummings out of the race. And Liberian people like to leave too much to politicians. Politics is too important to be left to politicians. Let me say that to you. And Honorable Cummings said that in his message, that too often ordinary people, the people who are most affected by the misrule, by the corruption, by the negative effects of bad governance, are the ones who are inactive and just sitting and watch the so-called politicians. It is important that Liberians turn out tomorrow. We cannot be armchair citizens. We cannot be armchair citizens. And that's why I said this speech was one of the greatest political speeches I've heard in a long time. And it's that way because of the way it places the obligation on the citizen, on the Liberian people, that you will have to fight for this democracy. Cummings by himself is not going to do it for you, but he is not going to allow himself to be bullied. Let's take a few more parts of that.
Live and what our future will be. This is why when the government begins to act dangerously, provocatively, and unfairly to threaten our peace, privacy, and democracy, we must wake up and pay attention. We must stand up and express our strong disagreements against this public wrong because it is dangerous for all of us. When the government does the wrong things, even under the pretext of politics, in the end, it affects all of us. It affects our freedoms and our rights. It affects our economy. The prices of commodities, including rice, dry fish, palm oil, clothes, shoes, just to name a few. It affects the opportunities our country needs to attract foreign investments and thereby create jobs for Liberians and for Liberian businesses. It affects our cost of living, from kerosene to fire coal, airtime for our telephones, which is already too expensive. It affects the cost of rent and building materials. Everything is affected when the government puts its hands in the wrong type of politics. And so, the right politics will lift up our nation, just as the wrong politics will pull us down. From mosques to churches, civil society to traditional communities, and from schools to marketplaces, we share the duty not to help the wrong kind of politics become the order of its neutrality. The courts should referee our democracy, not be used to destroy it. Democratic governments do not abuse the courts or try to get them involved in political matters. But this is what is happening here. This is what this we-led government is doing. They are doing this to exclude me, but the actions will also affect each and every Liberian citizen because it is your right to choose the leader you want that is being denied you. If this government is conniving to lock away its primary competition, it means 2023 will be a joke rather than a chance to seriously change the direction of our country and improve the lives of our people. The Way administration, with the help of some of our opposition friends, are conniving to come after me because they know I and the ANC represent a different threat. We represent a serious commitment to change the corrupt political system. They know that I and the ANC are the only ones with the integrity to say what we mean and mean what we say. And they know we will keep the promises we make to the Liberian people. In order to target me and the ANC, the others would gladly break up the CPP and will not lose one night of sleep over breaking the promises to the Liberian people. While lying to our people and breaking promises are normal for many in the current system and for some in the opposition, it goes against the very fabric of what I and the ANC believe and stand for. This is why they have trumped up these false charges against me and the ANC. This is what this trial is about. This is wrong politics. And all Liberians need to pay close attention to this and join us in acting and speaking out against it. In 2023 and beyond, Liberians have a right to choose who their leaders will be. In 2023 and beyond, Liberians have a right to choose who their leaders will be. Neither this government nor its favored opposition candidate has any business deciding for the Liberian people who they would like to run against them by politically persecuting the candidate they are afraid of so as to exclude him or her from the electoral process. There are many examples all over the world where this type of behavior is practiced, and it has led to some of the longest running and most devastating regimes and conflicts in the world. In such situations, the people who suffer most are the everyday citizens, and those who benefit are those at the top. The right to choose our leaders is not one of the rights we gave to the government to exercise on our behalf. Therefore, the government conniving to do this is a violation and an abuse.
That's Alexander B. Cummings making a very strong case to the people of Liberia and rubbishing the allegations against him. I just thought to play him in his own voice. And so it's going to be very key that we turn up tomorrow, that all of us turn up tomorrow to say to the WIA administration that you cannot choose your competitor. You know, one of George Weah's strategies is to have the ability to choose who he runs against in the 2023 election to give him an advantage. And one of the reasons why they like Boakai now is because, look, in CDC calculation, worst case scenario, Joseph Boakai plays stubborn, just out of shame because he told everybody you're running. If he decides to run, because as far as I know, he is not going to be on that ballot, and he's making plans to not be on that ballot. But let's say he got on the ballot. The campaign will not be a respectable one. It will not be organized. There's a chronic lack of resources. He will not be able to campaign across the country because of the health issue. And so you run a limited campaign. And the opposition turnout will be low because an effective campaign team can produce higher levels of turnout. And so George, we have believed by this means he can get a second term. And that is why you see them working with this baseless allegations to try and stop Cummings, because their view is that, listen, if Cummings runs, he is going to pose a major threat. Because look, one thing people don't know is how many connections Cummings forming on a daily basis. This man is growing his base. When things come into focus, just as remember when he was returning from the States and he was going to hold a program at the Liberty Party headquarters. I heard Abraham Towers DeLon and them say, let a man go have the program. Nobody would turn out. That ended up being one of the biggest political events in the country since 2017. So this is a gentle giant. You may hear him speak calmly, and you don't hear all the boasting and bragging, but there is a powerful Cummings movement on the ground. There's strong grassroots. Look, I told someone if polls could make president, Hillary Clinton would have been the president and not Donald Trump. Hillary all your pre-campaign money on scratch card for people to be calling on the air, that's your business. But as things stand, Alexander Benedict Cummings is a feared front runner. Because the government of Liberia will not waste their time prosecuting a nobody, someone who's going nowhere. They wouldn't waste their time. I'm supposed to have a guest on the show. I may seem a little distracted because I'm trying to get him on. I'm making an arrangement to have him on using the software here. But yes, tomorrow, a civil society group and several other groups are going to be staging a rally. The Conscious Youth of CPP will be there. I think they wrote the Ministry of Justice last week, designating Tuesday, tomorrow, as a major solidarity rally. That they're going to hold a major solidarity rally up on Capitol Hill. It promises to be huge. A lot of people I know will be going. I will be there. Definitely, I will be there. We will stand by Cummings. And this time around, the Liberian people need to use this platform to send a clear message to George Weah that in 2023, when you cheat, we will not accept the result. Because all of these things are a system of testing. This is a system of testing. Once you grab the opposition leaders you're afraid of and you are able to successfully intimidate them, you are testing the will and the resolve of the Liberian people. What makes you think Yuri cannot sue Bwaka too? Or they can use another opposition, they cannot use another opposition person to sue Bwaka? If that strategy helps them to get rid of Cummings and then Joseph Bwaka do not agree on price, because Joseph Bwaka is trying to sell to the government in terms of financial gain. What if there's a disagreement? They already have a playbook. The Liberian people need to draw a clear line in the sand to say, we'll put line in the sand here. This line, you can't cross it. To let the George Weah administration know what you will not accept. If you don't let the George Weah administration know what you will not accept, they will throw anything at you. And that's why tomorrow people need to come out. People need to come out. People need to come out in their numbers tomorrow to send a clear message to George Manuel Weah that this 2023 election is not an election to play with. 6 years of nothing. People that are working, you miss months of salaries. 6 years where we can achieve nothing in this country. 6 years of stagnation. And then you want to create a system that will force us to go 12 years with this nonsense. This is not about Alexander Cummings. This is about sending a signal to George Manuel Weah that the Liberian people will not just accept anything you put before them. And that the 2023 election will have to be a real election, because the people can only win a real election, not a rigged one. And you know, election rigging doesn't happen on the day of the election. So they're doing all of these things, prosecuting Cummings. To do what? To set the stage for Weah's second term. And anybody that's working with the government to prosecute Alexander Cummings is clearly in favor of Weah's second term. And this is the simple truth. There is no way you can be against a Weah's second term and you promote the prosecution of another opposition person. You know, I said it the last time that Joseph Numa Boakai will not be contesting, because his people insist that if we go for elections, that it will be Joe Boakai and we are in the second round. So if that is your thinking, then why would you be working with the government to imprison Cummings, who will be your tiebreaker? Let's just assume your Facebook and radio polls come true. If Joseph Newman Boakai is running for this election, he will not be prosecuting Cummings. He will not be working with the government to prosecute Cummings. Why? Because he will need Cummings. Is that we might need him, because Cummings is a real candidate. But Joe Boakai is not. I feel sorry for the men and women who spend their time, their resources, who are making enemies. I got friends of mine who don't speak to me because I'm critical of Joe Boakai. They really believe this garbage that Joe Boakai is running for office. Joe Boakai is not running for office. He's not. He doesn't have the money. He is not conducting himself like someone who is going to be a candidate. And it's tragic because people are really wasting time and money behind this garbage that Joe Boakai is running for president. Joe Boakai is not running for president. It's not a real candidate. Everything he's doing is to hold on to the Unity Party leadership until he can make a deal. That's it. Joe Boakai is trying to raise his value so that he can sell. He is not a real candidate, I insist. Joe Boakai is not a real candidate. He is supposed to delay, distract, and try to undercut the real opposition candidate, who is Alexander Benedict Cummings. And the government is using Ure and Boakai for that single objective: distract, delay, and undercut the real opposition candidate, which is Cummings. That's what's going on here. Because the US, for economic reasons, have accepted a Weah second term. They're on board a Weah second term. You see, Weah told them it's not enough. It's not enough for you to pull out of the CPP. It's not enough. That's not what we are paying you. That's not why we are giving your daughter a contract at the airport. That's not why we've promised to give Costa up to $500,000. That's not why. We don't just want to pull out. We want a legal battle in court, because that is an insurance policy for the George Weah administration, that even if Joseph Newman Parker goes against the contract and runs in the election, he cannot win George Weah in the second round, because he can never bring Alexander Cummings to his side. And so to put guarantee, Joe Parker and them were encouraged to take Alexander Cummings to court, so that there can be no future cooperation or coordination between Joe Parker and Cummings. It is that bad blood that the government wants to insert. And that's why they use the hands of Joe Parker, out of his desperation, to do this. Because someone that you take to court and try to destroy the person's reputation, you know you can't ask that person to support you. And so George Manuel Weah and them, knowing this, suggested the court action, because they know in a second round, best case scenario, Alexander Cummings will not endorse anybody. That's their view. That there will be no coordination or cooperation between the two. Because you see, in politics, no guarantor of contracts. Political contracts are not protected by anybody. You know, if you have a contract with me to supply me a car and I pay you and you do not supply me that car, I can sue you in court. But who enforces a political contract? There is no enforcement mechanism for political contracts. And CDC knows that. That is why, as they're spending their money on Joe Walker, on Bernard Ayure, and on Tilia Ayure, and on Henry Costa, they want guarantee. And that guarantee can be brought about by destroying the CPP and by taking Cummings to court. They know that Cummings supporters and Cummings voters will not come out. So this is the guarantee that Joe Walker will not run. Because how else is the CDC supposed to believe that Joe Walker will not run, giving George a lack of popularity? The only way to guarantee the deal is for Joe Walker to destroy his chances of ever becoming president. That is what they told him to do. Think about it. Even if you are a Unity Party ideologue who believes everything Mo Ali and Henry Costa put out, so take a piece of paper and start to calculate what they're telling you. Point number one they're telling you is, in a worst case scenario, Joe Walker and Weah will go to a second round, and Alex Cummings will come third. That is the CDC. That is the Unity Party calculation. So if that is their calculation, and they want to win, and they want to run, don't you think they will put a limit to their conflict with Cummings, so that in a potential second round, Cummings or Cummings voters can vote for Walker? But because that is not in the plan, they're taking matters all the way to the court. Because Weah told them to do so. Because they're in bed with Weah. Because Weah has spent money giving people positions. I refuse to believe that Joseph Newman Walker doesn't know about the deal between Bernard Ayure and McGill and George Manuel Weah. Walker knows. And Walker is being paid. And he's happy to do it because he is angry that Alexander Cummings did not prostrate and hand him the presidency on a pedestal. Alexander Cummings said, no, we must compete. we must compete. You know, Alexander Cummings said, no, we must compete. This is a competitive process. It's supposed to be a level playing field. May the best man win. Yes, you got more numbers, but that was 6 years ago. Let's test the mood of the country today. 9 years ago, Abraham Thomas Dillon came 6th place. The last 2 senatorial elections, he was winning with over 200,000 votes. And so time changes numbers. Time changes numbers. And politics is about seasons. This is a different season. So let's test. Let's test it. Let's hear what the executives of all the political parties have to say. Oh no, Joe Biden cannot go to a contest, it's too big. How is he going to be a president of the Republic of Liberia without going through contest? So George Weah should go on air and say, look, I got more votes than Cummings last election, so I'm not going to compete with him. Nonsense. Or I got more votes than Joe Biden last time, so I'm not going to compete with him. That's nonsense. It's been 6 years. And the Constitution calls for it. That you got more votes in 2017 is irrelevant in the context of a framework document. The simple fact. Hardliners in Joe Biden camp have driven him to insanity, where he is betraying the people. He's betraying his own promise to stay and to fix things. And to be that wise leader that they always portray him to be. Now he's playing quiet, but we know he is behind everything. We are not fooled. But let me close on this note of why you must show up tomorrow. You should show up tomorrow because you don't want a weird second term. You should show up tomorrow because an innocent man whose only crime is that he sees that his country is going in the wrong direction and he wants to do something about it. Which one of you will not want to save Liberia? Alexander Benedict Cummings committed only one crime, and that crime is that he cares about Liberia. An innocent man is being targeted for destruction. Millions of United States dollars going missing in government. Bogus audit reports. Selective justice. Barabbas is running around while Jesus is being crucified. Alex Cummings is not Jesus. But this system goes after good people and it protects the wrong people. Tomorrow, you can signal that you will no longer accept this. Your voice is more important than you think. This is why beginning around 8 a.m. tomorrow, we should be on Capitol Hill in solidarity with Alexander Cummings. I'm sure thousands will show up, but I will be pleased with even 10. I will be pleased with even 10. But Liberians must show the weird government that there are certain things we will not accept. And tampering with our democracy is one of those. So come out tomorrow. freedom is not free. And nobody can guarantee you a democracy apart from the people. See you tomorrow at the Solidarity Rally on Capitol Hill. Of course, I'll do the show before going, but I admonish you to show up. Thanks for being there. Another edition of the Dumoy Factor. See you tomorrow with a brand new edition. Goodbye for me.